step on. Yes, watch out for that. How's this? I think that'll work. We have a few people that are going to be standing behind. So. Shorter in front, taller in back. Shorter, you're short. All right, we are starting to work our way in. Anybody on the phone, just letting you know, we'll get started here in the next minute or so. And again, just a reminder to keep your phones muted until the AG asks for questions from the phone.
Bob, your briefcase is in the conference room. Don't forget.
Sometimes you need to scoot in a while. You need to scoot in a while. Yeah.
I'm going to hand this one to you, Dana, if that's okay.
Yeah.
All right, thank you for joining today. We're about to get started here, and I guess without further ado, here's Attorney General Bob Ferguson.
Thank you so much, Dan. Thanks to all of you for being here on this beautiful day. We really appreciate it. And to those on the phone as well, we appreciate your interest. Today I'm announcing that my office is convening a statewide organized retail crime task force. The task force will improve coordination and collaboration among law enforcement agencies. And through enhanced coordination, we will better combat these multi-jurisdictional crimes that endanger employees, the public, and cause significant economic harm to our state. The task force will include local, state, and federal law enforcement representatives, including the FBI and the U.S. attorneys who you'll be hearing from very shortly. It'll include county prosecutors, including a prosecutor from my office. It'll include retail partners, small business representatives, and worker representatives. They are all represented here today, and you'll be hearing from them this morning. I'm very proud to be joined by a large group, as you can see, a large group of leaders who I look forward to working with on the task force. And the individuals you'll specifically be hearing from this morning are Bellevue Police Chief Wendell Shirley, Washington Retail Association President Renee Sunday, UFCW 3000 President Faye Gunther, U.S. Attorney Nick Brown, and U.S. Attorney Vanessa Waldroff, and they'll speak in that order. So shortly I'll hand the podium to these leaders so they can share their perspectives on this challenge and about the upcoming work of the task force. So I'm going to keep my remarks brief. But I do want to talk about organized retail crime, which, as you probably know, involves a group of individuals that steal products not for their own personal profit, but to resell them for a profit. These stolen goods are often sold on the online marketplace, and I'll talk more about the risks and dangers inherent with that shortly. Here's what we're not focused on today for this conversation. We're not talking today about general retail crimes like petty theft, shoplifting, or poverty-driven crimes. We're talking about sophisticated, organized crime rings that account for almost $70 billion in retail losses across the United States. $70 billion. An analysis from the Retail Industry Leaders Association estimates that Washington retailers lost $2.7 billion to organized retail crime in 2021 alone. $2.7 billion in 2021 alone in Washington state. So let me give you just one example of how this organized crime impacts Washingtonians all across our state. As you probably know, a baby formula shortage is impacting families across our country and here in Washington. It's no surprise that baby formula is a common target for thieves. In fact, even before the shortage, which is making headlines, baby formula has been identified as one of the most common items to be stolen from stores. That's according to a 2020 National Retail Foundation Organized Retail Crime Survey. These thieves become resellers in online marketplaces. That means that parents who unwittingly buy stolen formula on the secondary market may be putting their babies at significant risk if the thieves, for example, fail to store the product at the appropriate temperatures, or if the thieves manipulated the packaging, such as changing the expiration date. And that's just one example, and you'll hear others from the other speakers. In short, organized retail crime is a statewide problem demanding a statewide solution. That's why I'm convening this statewide task force that will bring law enforcement, prosecutors, and retailers together to share information to combat the significant and growing problem. This is the first effort of its kind here in Washington state. I'm aware of about 9 other states that have a task force dedicated to organizing retail crime, and it's time for Washington to engage in a similar effort. Our first meeting will be on July 7th, and as we were chatting just before coming in this room, I'm just so appreciative of everybody here, their organizations, their employees, their workers, who are all stepping up to address what really is a true crisis in our state that has significant implications for businesses and for the people of our state. So again, I'm going to go through our speaking order one more time, especially for those who are on listening on the phone. So we'll start with Bellevue Police Chief Wendell Shirley, then Washington Retail Association President Renee Sunday, UFCW 3000 President Faye Gunther, U.S. Attorney Nick Brown, and U.S. Attorney Vanessa Waldra. Chief, you are up. Thanks for being here. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Good afternoon. I'm Chief Wendell Shirley with the Bellevue Police Department. First off, I'd like to thank Attorney General Ferguson for putting this task force together and allowing us to work together and be part of this announcement today. To our retail partners and prosecutors, I look forward to working with you as well. Organized retail crime is a significant and growing problem, and it's difficult for any one agency to handle because the crimes are committed in multiple cities and sometimes multiple times in one given day. I strongly believe working together, sharing information, and coordinating an emphasis on these types of crimes and holding folks accountable will and can have a significant impact. Bellevue is a well-known regionally as a retail destination with 3 malls and many boutique shopping areas. When you combine easy access to freeways, that makes it a target-rich environment for organized retail theft. In Bellevue, theft is the 3rd largest crime category reported in Bellevue. The crime is extremely lucrative, easy to carry out with few consequences many times. We also know that there is a black market for stolen goods, whether it's high-end goods like clothes, accessories, tools, or general products that are quickly sold for cash. Currently, we are partnering with our retail partners, conducting targeted enforcement as it relates to this particular issue. Our officers work closely with our crime prevention staff, building trust so that they know we will respond and respond quickly. We also help train employees and provide high visibility patrol and planned operations in some of our hotspots. And while this is having an impact, identifying organized crime retail thieves is very difficult. Coordinating efforts with other agencies in Puget Sound and across the state will undoubtedly help us all combat this organized retail crime theft. We also welcome the statewide organized retail crime task force and look forward to sharing information with other agencies. Our goal is to help identify and stop crimes before they are committed. So once again, I really thank the Attorney General for putting this together, and the City of Bellevue, the Bellevue Police Department, look forward to working on this task force. Thank you.
Is that working? Thanks, Dan. Thank you.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Renee Sunday, President and CEO of the Washington Retail Association. And first and foremost, I'd like to thank Attorney General Ferguson and his team for their outstanding efforts in bringing together key partners to form an AG-led statewide task force to combat organized retail crime. Joining us here today from my team are Mark Johnson, Senior Vice President of Policy and Government Affairs, who also serves on the Washington Organized Retail Crime Association Board, and John Engber, the Director of the Retail Industry Coalition of Seattle. Also here today are a number of our retail partners who work in the areas of security, loss prevention, and asset protection. Joining us here today, if you don't mind just doing a little bit of a wave, are Robert Nelson with Lowe's, who also serves as President of the Washington Organized Retail Crime Association, Paul Tucker with Lowe's, Jerry Laram with the Home Depot, Stephen Thomas, as well as Jose Barreto with Walgreens, Brian Wiles, Travis Forbush, and Stuart Markley with Nordstrom's, Carl Kleineck with the Kemper Development Company and the Bellevue Collection, Terry Mullen with CVS, Dennis Lamborn with the Gap Incorporated, Michael Brown with Rite Aid, Alexander Deloyle with Target, and Sandra Englund, who is the Executive Director of the Korean Americans Grocers Association. I want to thank you all for your important work that you do on behalf of the retail industry and for your commitment to working together to support the important work of this task force. There has never been a more critical time in Washington State to address the impacts of organized retail crime on public safety and the safety of our customers and our retail employees. Over the past months, stories of organized theft have been on the forefront of virtually every media channel across the U.S., including major retailers and grocers everywhere, and many of our small businesses have been a target as well. As the retail industry recovers from the pandemic and workforce challenges remain, organized retail crime has become a top issue for our members, while criminals have become more brazen, more violent in their attacks on retail stores across the state. This threat to personal safety has impacted the mental well-being of our employees, and many of our frontline retail workers have witnessed these outrageous crimes in action and even faced some physical threats themselves. To be clear, and we heard this earlier, we are not talking about shoplifting. Instead, organized retail crime is the monetizing of stolen products that are often used to fund even much more egregious criminal activity that may include human trafficking, weapon sales, drug trafficking, and terrorism. These organized rings often specialize in an array of high-value and easy-to-fence products that range from, as mentioned earlier, baby formula to over-the-counter medications, cosmetics and power tools, to electronics, designer clothing and accessories, and even Lego toys. Coordinated attacks are usually multiple events by 2 or more people in multiple jurisdictions. These groups then sell the merchandise either through online marketplaces or businesses that actually look legitimate and operate in plain sight. As more thefts are turning violent and even deadly in our stores, this multi-billion-dollar problem has led to increased prices for shoppers while facing record inflation, loss of tax revenue for cities and counties, as well as product shortages as we recover from the pandemic. While several surveys have attempted to measure the impacts of ORC, most estimate that the total national impact is around $69 billion annually. According to the National Retail Federation, 75% of retailers said that they saw an increase in organized retail crime since 2020. In Washington State, the grocery industry alone has experienced hundreds of millions in annual losses, which have put in jeopardy the viability of some grocery stores. Although retailers have spent millions to beef up their loss prevention and in-store security, these investments alone cannot solve this problem. These efforts have been highly effective. Actually, I wanted to say that during the past couple of years, and this was mentioned earlier, that several states did launch their own organized retail crime task force, and these efforts have been very effective in prosecuting several multi-million-dollar cases. The task force itself is an effective tool for sharing information, coordinating efforts among state and local law enforcement, prosecutors, retailers, and policymakers at multiple levels of government. And addressing the fencing of stolen products sold through online marketplaces is going to be critical to removing the incentives to commit the thefts in the first place. As retailers have done in other states, Washington retail members will provide investigative resources to the task force and our expertise on this critical issue. Mark Johnson on my team serves as an ORC expert in our state and will be available to answer questions today on the impact and growth in retail crime. I want to say thank you again to Attorney General Ferguson and the fellow partners here today. The formation of this task force sends a very strong message that we are all dedicated to the shared goal of building safer communities, and retailers stand ready to help in achieving this goal. So, thank you.
My name is Faye Gunther, and I'm the president of UFCW 3000. Our union represents over 50,000 members in grocery, retail, as well as healthcare and cannabis and other industries across the state of Washington, in Idaho, and in parts of Oregon. Many of you know our frontline essential workers because you've been shopping during the pandemic. Folks have been in the grocery stores, in the drugstores. Our members have been taking care of everyone and making sure that they're fed during the pandemic. During the pandemic, they went to work and faced a virus that they were worried they were going to take home to their families, but they also faced something else, which was this organized retail crime every single day. And right now, our essential workers need all of our help. They need all of us to be coming together like this because it is not safe. It's not safe for the workers, and it's not safe for the customers, and it's not safe for our community to have organized retail crime ravaging our stores. The organized retail crime, it's targeting our grocery stores. We have Safeway, we have Fred Meyer's, we have QFC, I see a PCC bag right there. We have Bartell's, we have Rite Aid, and these folks are coming in and just taking stuff, thousands of dollars of stuff off of the grocery shelves, or off the shelves, including Macy's just going in. I've seen it with my own eyes. I have seen the warehouses filled with these goods. It looks like a Fred Meyer warehouse or a Safeway warehouse. It is absolutely, it's absolutely unacceptable. This harms all of us, and it should be an issue that can unite us, customers, essential workers, and employers alike. This is an issue that I think can break through some of the rhetoric and make sure that we're all standing together and making sure that our workplaces are safe, our communities are safe. I want to thank Attorney General Ferguson for taking this threat seriously and convening this task force. I look forward to working with this group to ensure that the voice of workers like those currently represented by UFCW 3000 and any other workers who are going to join UFCW 3000 all get the representation that they deserve. Our members care deeply about their jobs. They care about their coworkers. They care about their customers. When organized crime comes into our workplaces, it puts all of us at risk. No one should be placed in harm's way when they're or made to feel in danger when they're buying or stocking the shelves in grocery stores. And there are solutions. This task force is a critical part, but another key step is removing online platforms that launder stolen goods for profit. Amazon and other online retailers need to step up and ensure stolen goods are not sold on their platforms. If eBay can do it, so can Amazon. Attorney General Bob Ferguson knows how to advocate for consumers and workers and has a strong record of holding corporations accountable when they do wrong, as does our union. I look forward to working with this task force to find solutions for our frontline essential workers to ensure that we can restore safety in our workplaces, safety in our communities, and make sure our families can go into the grocery store and not be the target of organized retail crime. So thank you very much, and I look forward to the work that we are going to do.
Good afternoon. My name is Nick Brown. I'm the United States Attorney for the Western District of Washington. I want to add my thanks to Attorney General Ferguson for gathering this group and all the people that support this group together today. And Bob, it's good to have another press conference with you. It's been a while since we've been doing this sort of thing. Anytime you have a criminal justice challenge or a priority, they are best solved when people collaborate and communicate and share their resources together. And that is exactly what you're seeing today, and that is exactly what you're seeing in Attorney General Ferguson's task force. So I'm very appreciative for the AG's office for leading this effort and for bringing this group together. Number two, I want to highlight that this is a serious problem for all the reasons that other speakers have mentioned, and has the full attention of my office and my counterpart in the Eastern District of Washington and all of our federal law enforcement officials as well. And the reason it has the attention of the federal government is, in addition to the impact that you've heard already today, organized retail theft is a tool. It is a tool used by criminal organizations who do a myriad of other types of crime. It is a tool for people who traffic in drugs. It is a tool for people who are engaged in larger cyber fraud and wire fraud and economic crimes. It is a tool for organizations that are engaged in violence. This is one of the ways that those organizations have an impact on our community. And I can assure you that not only our offices and the Department of Justice, but our law enforcement partners in the FBI and HSI are working on this issue and will continue to do more of these sorts of cases. And I just want to highlight that the reason we want to address this problem, for all the reasons that you've already heard today, is that we all want to live in safe and healthy and vibrant communities. And safe and healthy, vibrant communities depend on having workers that feel safe when they go to work, businesses that feel safe that law enforcement will do everything they can to protect their businesses, and customers who walk into stores who want to feel safe while they're shopping individually or with their families. And organized retail theft, it does damage and is a threat to that safety, and that is why we will continue to work on this. So thank you again to Attorney General Ferguson. Thank you to all the partners here today for partnering with our offices on this effort, and I'm excited about what the task force can accomplish. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon. My name is Vanessa Waldriff, and I am the United States Attorney for the Eastern District of Washington. And I also want to extend my thanks to Attorney General Ferguson for inviting me and my colleague Nick Brown to give a federal perspective of the ways that we're seeing organized retail crime and how it intersects with some of our federal priorities in keeping our communities safe. Fraud and this type of organized crime devastates our community's limited resources. We've heard today about some of the violence that can occur in our retail stores. And we have seen concerning robberies, especially in pharmacies, that can intersect with our priorities around drug crimes and seeing opioids that are then brought into our communities for distribution. And these are, again, not at shoplifting quantities for individual users, but at distribution quantities. So those types of crimes that are seen in our retail stores, retail pharmacies, are desperately impacting our communities with the influx of more opioids and creating more addiction problems that lead to violent crimes as well. So we're seeing it in that context for pharmacies. And we're also seeing organized crime by sophisticated actors who seek to defraud vulnerable individuals for their own profit schemes. Federal charges brought by my office can be a powerful tool to combat counterfeit schemes, which we've seen proliferate on the dark web and have intersections with this type of organized crime. Another example is that we see counterfeiters. So counterfeit money can be purchased on the dark web and then brought into our retail stores. That money can then be used to be laundered, essentially, by returning items for cash, by purchasing items that then are resold on the dark web or on online mechanisms. Or there's further gift cards that are purchased using counterfeit currency that then can be sold on the dark web or on online forums. These all create problems for our entire community. They create cost increases for consumers who are trying to stretch their dollars, like all of us are, to support our families and to support our communities. And they cause a lot of impact for our retail stores. And we've heard about the devastating impact that it has on our workers. So these crimes are absolutely impacting our community in a variety of ways. And we see that in the counterfeiting process, and then the schemes that can also involve identity theft. So when you're buying illicit items on the dark web, there are also organized crime schemes that buy identities and have gift cards that can be loaded up with fraudulent credit card information. Identity theft, wire fraud, this type of theft of credit card information all has significant impacts on Washington residents, both in the prices that we see in the stores and in your life if you're trying to recover after your identity theft has been stolen. My office and our federal partners are focused on combating these fraud events and these fraudsters who take advantage of our community for their own financial benefit. Unlawful resale undercuts small businesses, it hurts consumers, and it makes products more expensive for all of us. And I'm proud of my office's white collar and fraud team, who are the leaders in taking on these counterfeit and fraud cases, but also our organized crime and drug attorneys who are seeing this type of interaction also impacting our efforts to combat the opioid epidemic and the influx of drugs into our communities. We are trying to work as quickly as possible in a lot of these schemes to take the assets back from individuals who have stolen these goods and make sure that we can have the money come back to victims of the crimes. So So I want to thank everyone who is here again. I'm very excited about the opportunity to collaborate, and I agree with everyone who's spoken to the benefits of having a collaborative effort on this. This is exactly the type of local, state, and federal partnership where we can work together to ensure that our Washington residents are safe and are economically secure. Thank you.
Thanks, Vanessa, and to all of our speakers, who I think did a wonderful job of really detailing the extent of the problems that result from organized retail crime. And just one last point I'll make before opening up to questions is that, I think you got a sense from the speakers of how big the challenge is. And what I want to emphasize is no one of us, right, no one retail store, no one prosecutor, no one attorney general, no one U.S. attorney can solve the problem. It's just way too big. Economically, for workers, for the public, for public safety, it's way too big. And that's why it seemed important to me and to all of us here to bring our resources together, to share information, to work together to address what really is a huge, huge challenge. I think, Faye, you were the one who said, which I appreciated, was the challenge impacts everybody and also unites us all as well for that reason, which I think sums it up really well. It does impact everybody in our state, and therefore we need to be united in our attempts to, from all our different perspectives that we have and the different roles that we have, to address this challenge. So what I'll do now is start with questions here in the room if folks have it, and then for those on the phone, what I will do is I will do my best to repeat the question just so you can hear it, and speakers will do our best to reintroduce ourselves when we come back up so those on the phone know who's asking, who knows who's answering the question. Go right ahead.
My question is, kind of since we have both law enforcement and retail here, we wouldn't be here unless the stores had more of a too lax of a policy to allow people to walk out the store. Is that part of the problem here? Is that the stores need to have a stiffer policy about what they're doing about people leaving the store with product, and therefore, because that's what the criminals are taking advantage of?
So I'll just repeat the question and turn to others who may have a perspective on that. So the question went to, is part of the problem the view that stores are not stopping folks from leaving the store with the stolen goods and more being done essentially on the front end, I think is the way. Yep, taking advantage of that policy. So I'll turn to others who are dealing with this on a daily basis. That's okay? Again, watch your step, everybody. So Mark, are you taking this one? And just reintroduce yourself, everybody would be great.
Hi, Mark Johnson, Senior Vice President of Policy and Government Affairs for the Washington Retail Association. Also serve as Government Affairs Chairman for the Organized Retail Crime Association of Washington. It's a great question. Thank you for that. So what retailers have to balance out is the risk of a customer getting injured or killed, an employee getting injured or killed, or even the perpetrator, the suspect, getting injured or killed. Is it worth it for that product that they may lose? And I would have to contend that there is no product or amount of product that can really replace that individual that may be hurt. I had the unfortunate experience of witnessing in a retail establishment in my hometown of Olympia a theft going on as I'm checking out. And I said, that person's stealing those backpacks. Are you going to stop them? They go, it's not worth me not going home tonight to my family to chase them out in the parking lot. They could be armed. They could have a weapon. I could get hurt. I could get bear sprayed, stabbed, shot. Any of those things could happen. So the retailers out there that have a hands-off policy, they really have to consider the implications of what could be the cause and what could hurt either the thief, the customer, or the employee.
Yeah, absolutely. Go right ahead.
Yeah, very quickly, I just want to add to what was just said. From a law enforcement perspective, we do not encourage loss prevention officers who are basically not armed, right, not trained exclusively in this type of issue to begin to use physical force to try and detain somebody from stealing something, because the only thing that's going to happen with that is some of the things that was just said, right? And people get injured and hurt trying to defend or protect property, and it's just not worth it. So from a law enforcement perspective, we agree with them 100%. It's not worth it at that point.
Just from a worker's perspective, I mean, I had a workers do not want to see this stuff getting stolen. They care about their employers. They have a lot of pride in their work. I had a Rite Aid worker pursue somebody who stole cigarettes and ended up falling and dying. We do not want our members being put in harm's way. This is not workers' faults that organized retail crime are inside these stores. And so we tell our members who are making $20 an hour or something like that, you didn't get trained, just like you were saying, you didn't get trained. You don't have weapons. These folks have guns. They have weapons, and they are inside of our facilities. I would not put any worker, I would not ask any UFCW 2000 member to pursue somebody who is a criminal. It's not safe for them, and it's not fair to frontline essential workers who already do so much for our community.
And maybe just the only thing I'll add to that is, I mean, I think all of you said it well, is that's not where the onus is, right? On folks to take on someone who they have no idea what weapon or weapons they have. And, you know, I'll just say from personal experience, I went to law school in New York. I was walking home from late night at the library once. Two guys stopped me on a dark stretch of in the middle of the night and wanted my wallet. And I said no, which is about the stupidest thing I could have done. I was surprised, and I just said no and resisted. And, you know, I got beat up for that and hurt pretty bad. And frankly, I was lucky, when I look back on it, I was lucky I walked away from it, honestly, relatively walked away from it, and lost my wallet at the end. I've learned my lesson on that. So to expect any worker in any store in that situation to, no. And so, you know, with that knowledge, that's why it's even more incumbent upon all of us to share our resources, do what we can to catch those folks, hold them accountable, and stop that from happening in the first place. Thanks for that question. Any other questions here in the room? Oh, yes, go right ahead.
I think everyone's kind of really hit home the impact that this is having on the community. But I guess for some people that are curious, you know, when they hear the name task force, it's more than just a name. So if you could kind of walk me through, I understand the impact, but what changes will people see, or will there be because there's a task force?
Yeah, so the question, I'll just repeat it, is goes to with the task force, what changes might there be, right, as a result of the task force working together? So I will start, but obviously we'll welcome others who will share their perspectives as well. So number one, what I would say is that each one of us and the groups or workers we represent touch on one piece of this, right? And to my point earlier, no one of us can solve it or even effectively address it. Right? And so because this is an issue that transcends some random county border or city border or even state border for that matter, you know, by definition, putting us all in the room together where we're exchanging information about what we're experiencing and sharing the resources and talking about the resources that we have some resources in my office, right, when it comes to criminal prosecution. Not as much as maybe another prosecutor's office, but we have something we can offer, bring to the table. But sharing that information, I found in my experience on working with task force in other contexts, that the sharing of that information helps with enforcement, helps with prevention, raising the profile of an issue, and getting folks in the room to make sure we go after the bad guys, hold them accountable, and provide the resources we need to help retailers and small businesses who are dealing with this challenge. But I'll let others weigh in on that as well who want to jump in.
I would just add that I think the task force is sort of like putting a line in the sand, even though we're focused on the really big cases that might be going on that without the coordination are not being halted. I think by taking this line in the sand, putting this line in the sand, what it does is it deters thefts and criminals that are maybe not organized, fully organized, but it certainly says that this type of behavior is not acceptable. And so I think by working together, it begins to create a narrative that says we don't want to live in our communities like this anymore. We don't want to shop where we're afraid. We don't want to go to work and be scared. We need to stop this behavior in the state of Washington. And by working together, I think through the task force, it will have an impact on that narrative.
I can speak to how there are so many benefits in terms of law enforcement efforts when there are members at the table from local, state, and federal law enforcement. A good example of a partnership that can be really effective in combating this type of crime is our local police departments are the ones on the ground that would be responding to an incident at a retail store. but our Federal Bureau of Investigation agents would be able to know if there were, a pattern of activities that are connected to criminal online actions, which often occur interstate or even internationally. And so being able to combine our efforts and share information effectively really allows us to take down larger organized crime syndicates and ensure that smaller events don't turn into even larger criminal activity. So both in the deterrent effect as well as in responding to crime and ensuring that we're getting all the bad actors to most effectively serve the community.
Absolutely, Chief. Yeah, no, go for it.
One thing I'd like to add, in terms of from a local law enforcement perspective, right, from Bellevue here, task force are very important because no one agency, as I said earlier, can deal with this alone, right? And people that decide to commit these crimes, they have no jurisdiction or boundaries. So they'll go from Bellevue to Redmond to wherever else, right? And so this task force coming together allows us to share information, share investigative information as well. And I think as you can see from this task force, I'm from law enforcement in Bellevue, but we have many of our private security corporations here in partnership. And I can tell you in the city of Bellevue, that's something we take very serious. We work very closely with our private security companies such as Kemper Security, Nordstrom, Home Depot, you name it. And that partnership and communication is key to helping solve this problem.
Just introduce yourself, everybody. Great, thanks.
Yeah, Carl Kleineck, Director of Security with the Bellevue Collection in downtown Bellevue. We have been asking for a task force like this for several months. We have noticed that the tentacles of crime are far-reaching, goes way beyond the county. It goes up and down the I-5 corridor, and we will often have malls as far south as Northern California asking us if we are familiar with certain suspects that have done wholesale thieving from their property. Oftentimes we are. The gap that we've seen is who do we contact in the private security sector to take that lead and work it up into a case that can be filed so that we can assure that accountability is the end result of our efforts. And so this task force has been a long time coming, and we are very optimistic that we can start down a pathway of accountability.
So I just want to echo, U.S. Survey 3000 has been asking for a task force. Sarah Cherno shot her. We've been pressing for some solution and a place where we can work with the employer community. And Safeway and the loss prevention folks with Safeway have been working with us. That's how I saw the warehouses. So we've been trying to figure out ways we can partner. And I was thinking about Attorney General Ferguson's record. He doesn't lose very much, and he doesn't put together a useless task force. So I think that, to your question, I think that we'll see some real solutions out of this.
Thanks for that. The team works very hard on behalf of the people, so I appreciate you mentioning that. Thanks so much. Are there any other questions here in the room before we see if anyone online on the phone? Oh, yes, sorry, go right ahead.
You mentioned 9 other states have them.
Yeah.
Will you be working with them and sharing info?
Yeah, so the question is, I mentioned 9 other states, I believe that's the right number, it might be we're the 9th, have similar task force on organized retail crime, and the question is, would we be working together? The short answer is yes. In fact, I've had conversations with some of those AGs, in particular Kwame Raoul, Attorney General of Illinois. I was chatting with some folks before this meeting where he and I had a conversation some time ago, and I asked him about his experience with the task force that he had, the prosecutions they've been successful in bringing as a result of that task force working together, and he just went on about how positive an experience it has been to bring together different folks from his state to address a real issue that they're facing, and also the results they're seeing already in the very early stages of that task force working together. So yes, the answer is, the AGs work together, as you might imagine, on multiple issues. This is one that is firmly in the bipartisan category. And one thing I can assure you I'll be doing as I walk out of the room today is sending a text message to Kwame, my friend Kwame, and who I was in a meeting with earlier today, and other AGs about the formation of this group, and at the next conference, sharing the information about who's a part of this, what we're doing, and sharing that with other AGs. One other thing I just will mention, before coming in this room, we were chatting, and I'll share one thing I share with everybody in that room was that I have no doubt that this task force will do good things for Washington State. I'm also very confident other AGs will notice what we're doing here in Washington, and other states are starting to do, and they'll pick up on the idea as well. So I think it'll be helpful nationwide as well. Thanks for that question. So why don't we see if anyone, I think we have a few minutes left, why don't we see if anyone on the phone has a question? And if you do, just if you don't mind identifying yourself and who you're with, that'd be great, and we'll do our best to answer it. And maybe we'll get off easy on the phone. I was just telling everybody we get more questions nowadays on the phone than in person. Today was just the opposite, sort of with COVID. But okay, so I appreciate everybody who's joined on by phone. And just as we wrap up, folks are available to chat one-on-one with you if you have questions or want to talk with individuals about their personal experience. We're obviously available for that. And just as a final thought is two final thoughts. One, thanks to all of you. We just greatly appreciate it. And I think your presence here today and the organizations you represent, I think does send a signal to our state that this is something we are all taking very seriously. We'll do everything we can to address and to bring accountability to this issue. Number two, I think there can be a temptation for a Washingtonian to turn on the news and see an example of retail theft going on in the news and think, you know what, that doesn't impact me. They feel bad for what happened at that store, but I think there's a temptation to think it doesn't impact me. And the realities I think you've heard today is it does impact you. It impacts everybody in different ways, to be sure, but it impacts all of us economically, for workers, for our economy, for people who try to buy products, safe products online, you name it. The tentacles of this organized retail crime, they're extensive, and they impact all Washingtonians, and that's why it's going to take a statewide effort to get our arms around it and to address it and to bring accountability. So thanks to all of you for being here so much. Thanks to you, the media who are here today, and we're happy to take any questions one-on-one. Thanks so much, everybody. Thanks so much. Yeah. Thanks so much for being here. Really appreciate it. Yeah, thanks so much. Yeah, really. Normally, I don't know what this is, but I've been here before, I'm sure of it. It's so funny.